We've been through things that should have broken us: trauma, loss, hardship, the kind that leaves a mark. But it also left something else, something most people spend their whole lives trying to find. I'm Misty Carson, and it's time we stop surviving and start building with it. This is the Unbreakable Advantage.
Maria, welcome to the Unbreakable Advantage. I am so
Thank you.
grateful that you agreed to be on the show. So tell me a little bit about who you are, what you do, and your season in life.
So my name is Maria. I am actually a dental hygienist by trade, but I ended up going back to school at some point in my career, and I decided to pivot completely and get out of clinical. And now I work with startup companies and AI software. I am a clinical advisor, a CTO. I also help with product development, as well as help dental professionals pivot from clinical roles to non-clinical roles, like the ones I have at the moment.
Yeah, that is a very big change from being in the chair to doing all of the AI and all of the business planning. How has that change been for you?
It's definitely been different, although I'm still in the dental field, which has been phenomenal because I've been able to use my experience and everything I know, and I just shifted gears. But it's been great because it's given me a whole other perspective in dentistry and a whole other role completely. I don't work with patients anymore, so I don't have that one-on-one, but I do work with developing teams and everything to do with like the back end of it. So I still get to make a difference in the dental field, but not with patients directly. It's more indirectly.
Yeah, that's a big change for sure. It's awesome to start something new and to realize that you can be really good at multiple things. So I love that you're stepping out and taking this new chapter. So as you shared, you spent 20 years in dentistry and more than 15 of those years as a hygienist. But what gave you the courage to make the transition and to start something completely new? And when you got the courage, what did you have to let go of in that process to do it?
So there's a lot that happened that made me think of the shift. One of the things was I struggled with IVF for many years, and then once I got pregnant, I thought, well, how is that going to look like once I give birth to my baby if I'm kind of stuck in the office from 8 to 5, 8 to 6, sometimes at 7. I've had jobs that I've been there till 8 at night. So it just made me realize I have to make a change. And then not only that, once I did become pregnant, it was really hard because I actually ended up struggling with carpal tunnel. Which gave me a whole other perspective and appreciation for the dental field, because what if I can't do what I was born to do, like dentistry? And, what if this is a problem and, I go through surgery or whatever that may look like, and I just can't go back to clinic. So there was a lot of that going on in my head. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized maybe this is the time that I should start shifting and growing. I also did feel at one point I had capped out. I had been in dentistry for a long time, and I kind of felt I wasn't growing anymore. And that's another reason that I wanted to make the shift. So at some point, I went back to school full time while I was a hygienist. I went full time online, and I finished my master's degree in AI and business analytics.
I love that. That is so impressive. And it is so hard to work full time and have a child and go back to school. I have done the same, and it is so much pressure. You feel like you're on all the time. So I appreciate that. You mentioned in your last response that you had struggled with IVF, and we talked a little bit offline, you and I did, in the form that I have people fill out to be a guest on the show. And I would say, based on your responses, the season that you felt really built you was the 7-year journey that you went through infertility. what did that season of your life demand from you day to day?
It's funny because, you know what you went through, but
Mm-hmm.
when you hear it, and I
Mm-hmm.
think it just doesn't get old for me because every time I hear it from somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
it's just like a reminder of all those details. Um, it was really hard because you show up for patients every day, and I felt like I did a really great job being there for my patients. I left all of my problems at the door. I think I'm really good at that. Um, I kind of hide my feelings and I just kind of
Mm-hmm.
move on with the day. And, I went through 3 rounds of IVF. And the reason why it took so long, it was because on and off, there was huge loans that I would take out in order
Mm-hmm.
to do it. And then I would have to pay it off. And then I would have to start again.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one office in particular that I eventually had to leave because the very first time that I decided to do IVF, I was so excited because in my head, I thought this is going to work. And I
Mm-hmm.
told everyone I did the
Oh.
big mistake. I think it was a mistake on my end to kind of just tell everybody. And I was trying to kind of put it out there so that it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't get pregnant, and then it was just super awkward because
Oh.
I still had to show up for patients. I still had to be a good um, coworker and
Mm-hmm.
still be present, but I still had all this baggage that I was just carrying throughout the whole day. And I ended up leaving the practice because I would have these like spurts of anger moments. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, I think I need a change of scenery, not because the
Mm-hmm.
team wasn't phenomenal, because they were, and we're all still really good friends, but because I needed a change of scenery and I kind of needed to kind of start again. And I kind of went to another office and I did the whole process again multiple times. And this time I didn't tell anybody. And it was just really hard. It was hard because, and I can't imagine what people go through when they have to go through IVF or anything similar, where you kind of have to stay quiet and you kind of just carry that, and you still have to show up to work, you still have to be present, and you still have to, do the best you can do with patients, regardless
Yeah.
of everything else that's going on.
It's really interesting to hear you say, and what I took away the most from what you just shared, and a lot of listeners out here can relate to this, is that regardless of what you're going through internally and regardless of your circumstances, you still decided every day to get up and show up and do your best for the people who were relying on you to fulfill your duties as a coworker, as a spouse, as a friend, as somebody just moving about in the world. And I think so many people can relate to that compartmentalization, just putting it in a box and putting it over here and then moving about your day and then quietly breaking down on your own when no one's watching. Would you?
Uh, the way you put it. Yeah, there,
Yeah.
there, I can tell you of a specific moment that like absolutely broke
Mm,
me. There's really kind people in the world, but then there's also very unkind people in the world,
yes.
and you kind of have to just let it be.
Mm-hmm.
There was this one particular patient that happened to ask me, do you have kids? And I said, no, not yet. And she just kept prying and kept asking, like, so why don't you have kids? Like, are you married? Yeah, I'm married. Like, oh, so
Mm-hmm.
you just got married? I said, no, I've been married for some time. They're like, oh, then, like, and she just kept going on and on and on, and she just
Mm,
kept digging this huge hole. And I didn't know how else to respond to her without giving her too much detail.
yeah.
And at one point, she said, you know, being a mother is like the best gift in the world.
Oh,
you really should like have kids, because at this point, you're really late in the game. You won't be able to have kids at all.
mm,
And I remember thinking, should I say something or should I just stay quiet and let it be?
yeah,
And I remember telling her, no, I'm not late. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of people that have kids in their mid 40s, late
that's
40s,
right.
right?
Hmm.
And I was towards the end of my 30s, and I said, I don't think it's too late. It's never too late. I said, it's just not my season.
Yeah.
Um, and I just kind of let that be. But I didn't cry until I got to my car. I held it all in throughout the day. And once I got to my car, all the way home, I just like cried my eyes out. And
Oh.
it was horrible. And I had moments like that on and off throughout the
Hmm.
7 years of trying that. It was just really hard to maneuver or get
Hmm.
through, but we got through it.
Yes, you definitely did. A couple things to everybody listening out there. You never know what someone else is going through, so choose your words carefully. If somebody is trying to remaneuver a conversation, there is likely a reason that is none of our business, right? So I just want to put that out there as well. You shared something with me, and you hit on this a little bit earlier when you were speaking, that as a mom hit me super hard. You said during your pregnancy, in a moment when you thought you were losing your baby, your mind went straight to how many hours you would need to work to pay off the IVF loan so you could try again. Walk us through that moment, and where do you think that response came from?
Yeah,
Oh.
I don't know why my head went there, but I remember it was a day after my birthday, June 14, and I wake up and I just felt wet, and I looked down and it was dark, and I just saw this huge puddle in my bed, and as I get up, I feel just wet, and I remember saying, "Oh no." And my husband turns on the light, and it was just looked like a massacre occurred.
Mhm.
It was just so much blood. And I remember walking to the bathroom, and in that moment, I couldn't even cry. I wanted to, but I had just so many feelings. I was upset, I was sad, I was overwhelmed. And I remember thinking, we were so
Oh.
close. And after so long of trying, like we finally got pregnant. And this is what I get. And I couldn't help but to think how unfair,
Mhm.
like I've been wanting kids for so long, and there are people in the world that, for whatever reason, they just don't feel as blessed or grateful for their kids. And here I am trying and dumping all this money to be a mom, and this happens. And I remember taking a shower, and I was still shocked. I still, like, it hadn't, like, really sunken in. And I remember as I was showering, I said, okay, it it's not going to do me any good if I just like harp on this moment, right? And just be angry. How do I get out of this? What's the solution, right?
Mhm.
So I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like we just swiped this huge like loan, and now I was trying to do math in my head and trying to figure out, okay, how many weeks is it going to take? How many months is it going to take for me to be able to pay off this loan so that I can hop on the next cycle so that I can try this again? Because the good news is we still had three really good embryos that
Yeah.
were frozen, which we didn't have before. So I was still trying to look at the light at the end of the tunnel, although it was like very, very narrow. And I showed up to work the next day, and on the drive to work, that's when I really like bawled my eyes out.
Hmm.
And I was hyperventilating. I couldn't breathe. And, I ended up going to work. I pulled my doctor in and my office manager. And at the time, those are the two people that I had decided to tell, because
Hmm.
there's a lot of appointments that take place before, during, and after when you do IVF. So I'm like, I don't think I could have kept that a secret without feeling
Hmm.
overwhelmed. So they knew the whole process, and they were very understanding. But when I got there, I remember telling them the whole story, and I'm just hyperventilating and crying. And I remember my doctor, the owner, said, "I think you should go home." I said,
Oh,
"No, I'm not going to go home, because like there's the solution would not be like crying, going back home. Like, I need to work. I need to pay
yes.
off everything. And I just need 10 minutes to put myself together." And I remember they did huddle. They did all that. They told people, like, Maria's just going through something, and, just give her a minute, whatever. And that during lunchtime, I ended up getting an appointment. I got an ultrasound, and to my surprise, the little baby was like blinking.
Oh,
And the baby was only like a month. Actually,
yeah,
because it was IVF, it was like a month and a half.
yeah.
And that another moment of like just hyperventilating and crying, because I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe
Oh.
it. But that was kind of like my thought process through the whole thing.
That's so amazing. There are so many women out there who are listening, and I shared with you that I didn't have an IVF experience, but I had several miscarriages, and my last one, I was in my 20 somethings week, at 24, 25 weeks, somewhere around there. And I went through something similar, woke up middle of the night, pain, drove myself to the hospital, and they told me they couldn't stop what was happening, the natural progression of things. And then I believe I shared, they then put you in the OB floor so you can hear all the other new moms and babies crying while you wait for surgery to, you know, to take the rest of what has already been taken from you, which is really difficult. What I hear in this moment when you share, and so many families, men included, are going to understand the pain of going through this and wanting a child so much, is the incredible amount of resilience that you had, that the determinedness that you had, that you were going to be a mom come hell or high water. It was happening. You didn't
Yeah.
care how, you didn't care what it took. You knew that it was meant for you, and you were going to go over any bridge that was required of you to get there. And that is so admirable. I just want to thank you for sharing, for being vulnerable and talking about that. Um, so, was there a moment during all of this when you realized that you're not the same Maria that you used to be?
I think I think there's two moments. Um, when I gave birth and I actually had my child in my hands, I think it took me months until I actually accepted the fact that I was a mom. It was weird.
Yes.
It was a very, very weird feeling.
Yeah.
And Mother's Day was also weird. I remember my first Mother's Day feeling, I almost, not that I didn't deserve it, but I just felt so emotional and so bad for all the other moms, like on the other side, right? Like, here
Mm-hmm.
I am finally on the other side of things, and there's still a lot of people that I knew that were struggling,
Mm-hmm.
and they weren't there, and it was just really hard for me to celebrate and feel happy for myself for the first
Mm-hmm.
time, because I still was so wrapped up in all those thoughts, and I really think it was some type of PTSD. But that was one moment that I
Yeah.
realized, man, I went through a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't believe that I just was very, very persistent and very determined.
Mm-hmm.
I think the second moment was when I went back to school. one thing is going to school when you don't have as many, responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is going to school with a family. I had my 1 year old at the time when I
Mm-hmm.
decided to go back to school. And I remember thinking the first few weeks, every week, I'm like, I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to back out. I'm like, no, I can't. Like, I might as well just go through it. And I remember every semester feeling overwhelmed, but it got easier.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I graduated, this accomplishment felt so different than all my other degrees before because I was juggling so much more. So there was a much bigger appreciation, and I got to learn more about myself then after
Mm-hmm.
I graduated. So those are the two moments I would say that I knew this is not the same Maria, and I love myself for it because I powered through. I powered
Yeah.
through, and I am the way I am, and I'm grateful for all the experiences I've received because I wouldn't be the person I am today if it wasn't for it.
I love that perspective so much. And this is everything I'm building is on this premise that without these really difficult, tough, adverse situations that we go through, the way you show up and the person that you become by not allowing circumstances to uproot or upend what your end goal is, you, there's nothing that can replace that kind of growth as a person, and there's nothing that can replace that new vision you see of yourself when you're looking in the mirror. You're like, holy shit, I can
Yeah.
do hard things. And not
Yeah.
just as a mantra, but you have the record to prove it. You can literally look back and be like, that would have broke most people. And here I am standing triumphant with my baby, with my degree, with my new job, my new career. It's amazing. Super,
Yeah.
super
Yeah. I'm
awesome.
super grateful. I'm grateful for all of it.
So during all of those moments, we talked about the new version that you became, but when was the moment when you said, "Holy crap, I do not give up. Like if you knock me down, I'm going to stand up and it's going to happen again. Like I'll just keep coming till we're 20,000 rounds in if that's what it takes."
I want to say like a few people, I guess you don't realize like what you go through because you see it from your lens, but
Mhm.
I've had a few people tell me that know me really well, that have known me for a very long time, tell me, everything you put your mind to, you really do. Everything you say you're going to do, you absolutely do. And I think it's not until I heard it out loud that I
Mhm.
realized, oh, yeah, like I guess I never saw it that way. I just,
Mhm.
I really want something. I'm going to try to figure out whatever angle, even with the pregnancy, if I wouldn't have been able to get pregnant, I was already considering adoption. I don't know how or when. I just knew however that looked like, it might have not been the way I had thought in my head, but
Mhm.
I was going to become a mom regardless. So not only those moments show me that, but also when people tell me, I've noticed everything you say and you put out there, like it happens. Yeah, but there's a lot of time and effort that comes in to that.
Yeah. There is something so beautiful about keeping promises that we make to ourselves. And that's really what it comes down to. When we say that we follow through with our word and we follow through on things or goals, it's just one small promise kept at a time. I mean, that's how we get there. And I really appreciate that you said a little while ago so many times you wanted to quit because it's not having those feelings. Everybody goes through that where they want
Oh
to
yeah.
take a step back, they want to throw in the towel. It's the fact that you don't. And people beat themselves up for having those feelings, but everybody feels that way. And
Yeah.
anyone who says they don't is lying. Yeah, everyone goes through those moments where it would just be easier to lay down and cry and let something else come your way. So amazing. I just love your story so much, and so many people are going to resonate with this. You used a phrase, and I want to talk about it, and I thought it was so beautiful. You said you're always reframing how you think so that you can use all those negative moments and turn them into something useful. When did you first notice you were doing that on purpose?
I think it took me a while to actually pivot into the non-clinical role. And that's the reason why I ended up getting a degree, because I felt without the degree, I didn't feel like I was getting taken seriously. And I was angry. I was angry because I know what I know.
Fair.
And I don't
Fair.
know
Yes.
why I wasn't getting hired, right? I was going through all these interviews, and I was interviewing consistently. When I tell you, once or twice a week for months. And then even with my degree, almost every week I had an interview. I mean, I still keep in touch with these companies, and I know some of them regret it, but things happen for a reason.
That's right.
But I was very angry, and I wanted to throw in the towel. I had to give myself a couple weeks to really think through, is this really what I want? Because it doesn't seem like it's going my way, and it doesn't seem that I'm going to get where I want to get. And I thought, no, this is what I want. So how do I make this happen? So I thought, I'm going to get a degree. I'm going to show them that I am serious, and I'm going to make sure that they know they'll regret. The ones that didn't hire me, they'll regret their decision. I went back to school, and once I completed everything, I realized, yeah, I am very persistent, and no matter what the circumstance, I always try to see, okay, these are two options. I'm going to go this way. If this way doesn't work out, I'm going to take another route, because somehow I need to get from point A to point B. However that may look like, probably won't look like the way you intended to most times, but I will get there. And that's when I realized, yes, I absolutely intentionally do refrain everything, and whatever it takes to get where I want to go.
I love that. So looking back on the 7 years that you went through, were you stuck or were you being built?
I definitely was being built. I remember there was this one time when I was in church, and our pastor had said, okay, I know I've read all of your prayer requests, and anyone who feels compelled to kneel down right there where you're at and pray, let's go ahead and take a moment. And I remember, and they don't do this often, it's very random. And for some reason, I mean, I felt like they were talking to me, right? And I kneeled down, and I remember just praying and bawling my eyes out. And I remember thinking, I surrender.
Yes.
Like, I'm just going to let whatever this may look like, I am just going to let it be. And I just want to make sure I am grateful for what I do have. And I just don't get stuck in this, in this like negative space, because I felt like many times I was very stuck in that space. And, there was a lot of times I wanted to quit and I wanted to throw the towel, but somehow I ended up just staying strong and just keep pulling through.
You definitely did. As people, the moment we start to have those thoughts, we immediately punish ourselves. We give ourselves no grace because we're like, oh, quitting would be easier. Well, of course you're going to have that thought, because quitting is easier than continuing to go through the pain. But we also recognize logically that there's pain on the other side of quitting as well, because you're not going to have the thing that you desire so much to have. And in your case, having a child or finishing your degree would be the two main motivators. If we would just allow ourselves space and grace to recognize that those feelings are going to happen and they're normal, it's what you do with those feelings. Do you stay there? And cry it out. I was just shared last week. I had not at church, although I've had moments like that at church. I woke up and I was like, what the hell am I doing? What am I trying to build? Who do I think I am? And I called a friend. I was sobbing, and I literally hit my knees in my bedroom, and I just gave it all to God. I was like, you got to take this. You got to take this feeling away from me. And by the end of the day, I'd had so much love from the world, from strangers, from my circle. And the day started completely on the opposite end of where it ended. And I was like, of course I'm supposed to be doing this, right? But I refuse to beat myself up for having moments. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, because once they have those feelings, they're like, oh, well, that's it then, because if I really wanted it, I wouldn't be scared, or this wouldn't be hard. And I don't believe that's true. How do you feel about that, Maria?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're all human. We're all going to feel at times like giving up, or at times where you need a moment, right? Mm-hmm. And it's okay. But like you said, it's what you do with it that changes everything and could really make you pivot, and the outcome can be completely different.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that people, in my experience, and I also went through this, and this is another thing you wrote when you had shared your story with me that I thought about all night. You mentioned the tortoise and the hare. You said the feeling that everyone else was hitting milestones and you were standing in place. And for someone who's listening today, who's 3 years into their own slow season, what would you say to them directly?
I mean, people tell you this all the time, right? And it's really hard when you're in it and you're in the thick of it, because I know I was in the thick of it, and I just saw everyone having baby showers and babies, and they were on their first and second and third babies, and here I am still trying, and I just feel older and older. And it can be very depressing and unmotivational, right?
Yes, yes.
You have to really, I think, just be grateful for where you're at and really focus on your lane, because your story is not going to look like everybody else's story. So just ride the wave, right?
Yes.
And learn from what either mistakes or challenges. Just that's all you can do, and just try to pivot until you get where you want to get.
Yeah, great advice. Great advice. So at the end of every episode with my guest, I have 3 closing questions. So my first one to you, Maria, is what does the unbreakable advantage mean to you?
The unbreakable advantage just means reframe the way you think, don't give up, stay true to yourself, and just learn from all your experience.
Yes, love it. And what did you have to let go of to become who you are today?
I think you have to let go of the noise, right? Everybody telling you what they think or how things should be. You just have to let go of that, and you kind of have to just ride your journey. It's your journey. It's your story. Don't let anybody tell you how that should go or what you should be doing.
That is so beautiful. I talk about that a lot. It's one thing when our own voice won't be quiet, but when we have so many other things coming at us as well, especially from people who love and care about us, it can get very confusing very quickly. And then you're not really sure if you should be listening to your voice, God's voice, their voice, what that looks like, sounds like. That's really good advice. And what do you still need to let go of to become who you want to be tomorrow?
I think definitely negative thoughts, right? Sometimes, we're our worst, what do you call that? Our worst
Critic?
critics.
Enemy?
Yeah,
Yes.
we're our worst. Like even me, like I'm trying to lose weight and be healthy and go to the gym, and I've lost a lot of weight, and I should be proud of myself, and I should celebrate that. But for some reason, I still nitpick at all these little things,
Mm,
and we have to stop doing that. We have to stop doing that to
yes.
ourselves and celebrate the positives more than the negatives.
hmm I love that. So let go of the pursuit of perfection and respect and appreciate what we've already done for ourselves. For
Yeah,
the record, you are beautiful and
thank you.
you look amazing.
Thank
So
you.
Maria, if people wanted to work with you or find you and reach out, talk about your journey, I've wanted to share anything with you, where can they find you online, on socials?
Yeah, so I'm heavily more on LinkedIn
hmm
nowadays, but I do have my website, mariadentalai.com, where you can see everything I do. And, you could always make an appointment and we can talk. And, whatever I can do to help, I would be more than happy to help.
I love that. For everyone listening, she's in South Florida. So if you have needs, she's your lady. So Maria, thank you so much for coming on, being vulnerable today, sharing your story. There are so many people out there who are going to resonate with your journey. What you've been through is difficult, and also the way you persevered and made it through is absolutely remarkable. I really respect and admire you. And for everyone listening, she now has a 3-year-old son, and he's her life. So she
Yeah,
made it. It's good.
made it.
Yes.
Always wanted
Yes.
three, but my one is perfect, and I'm extremely grateful and appreciative for that one.
100%. You have the exact child you were meant to have. Thank you
Yeah.
again, Maria. Thank you to everybody who is listening. You can find me also on socials, Misty Carson, MSHRM on LinkedIn, my website, unbreakableadvantage.com, my YouTube channel, Unbreakable Advantage, and also Instagram, Unbreakable Advantage. Until next time, keep becoming.
You showed up today, and that already says something about who you are. If this episode moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe wherever you listen and connect with me on LinkedIn and Instagram. We were not broken. We were being built. Until next week, keep becoming.